Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sharma Show Global. This is the Sharma Show, but in English. So there's a clip of Asaduddin Owaisi that's going viral on social media. Asaduddin Owaisi, obviously the leader of the AIMIM in India. He recently appeared on Rajdeep Sardesai's show on India Today, and he said that he cannot move on and that Muslims cannot move on after the verdict of the Ram Janmabhoomi temple, ignoring the fact that many Muslims have expressly said that they would very much like to move on. I've never heard it. Well, there's multiple videos about it. Nope. I've never heard it. Well, that's all right. You can read an article. There's plenty of articles about that too. I've never read anything.
Are you trying to tell me that the killings of Mahatma Gandhi should be forgotten? Let us move on. Are you trying to tell me that the butchering and genocide of Sikhs in 84 should be forgotten and moved on?
So in the video, he blames the BJP and the RSS for the death of Mahatma Gandhi, which is very interesting because Nathuram Godse, the man that did kill Mahatma Gandhi, had left the RSS before he did so. He also blames the death of Sikhs in 1984 on the BJP and the RSS, which is again public knowledge that it was the Congress party that was behind that pogrom. And prominent Sikh historians like Khushwant Singh himself have said how the RSS actually came out to defend and protect many Sikhs in 1984.
Are you trying to tell me that 6 December 1992 should be forgotten and moved on? Rajdeep, what do you want from me as a community, as Indian Muslim?
I'll tell you what I want.
Where do you want me to move on? Forget about 2002 Gujarat?
But see, that's where the problem lies. So if you cannot move on from these incidents, should Hindus also not move on from the Direct Action Day? Should Hindus also not move on from the Godhra Kand? Should Hindus also not move on from the Bhagalpur riot? Should Hindus also not move on from what happened to Kamlesh Tiwari and people like Ankit Saxena? Should Hindus also not move on from the Mopla massacre? Should Hindus also not move on from the genocide of the Kashmiri Hindus? I mean, what is the point here? If we turn this into a competition into who has suffered more during India's history, unfortunately, Hindus are going to win that competition. And honestly, there is no joy in winning this competition because winning this competition is kind of like winning a hot chili eating competition. Winning feels like shit.
What else do you want from me? Why is it that you always put me as a Muslim, as an Indian Muslim on a pedestal? Move on. Where do you want me to move on? Rajdeep, I am in abyss. Where do you want me to move on? Please tell me.
He says only Muslims are supposed to move on and Muslims are somehow held to a higher standard and kept on a higher pedestal and more things are expected of them. Well, that's very interesting because Hindus were asked to move on after the Razakars butchered Hindus and progressive Muslims in Hyderabad just because the Nizam of Hyderabad did not want to join the Union of India. And who were the Razakars headed by? The Razakars were headed by Qasim Razvi, who was the head of the MIM, the party that later went on to become AIMIM. In fact, AIMIM's website traces its roots back to the 1920s, and it speaks of Yar Jung and his role in shaping the party. So AIMIM counts the 1920s and Yar Jung as part of its history, but it very conveniently ignores the part of its history where the crimes of the Razakars are involved, where Qasim Razvi is involved. So you peddle India this selective history, and at the same time you ask Hindus to move on. How are you being held to a different standard? How are you being held to a higher standard? Should we be holding Owaisi responsible for the murder of the Hindus and the progressive Muslims at the hands of the Razakars? Because that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to pin the blame of the death of Mahatma Gandhi on the BJP and the RSS when they did not have anything to do with it. It's kind of like saying Rahim Chacha was responsible for the death of Gabbar in Sholay just because they lived in the same district. You know, you say Muslims are being held or you are being held to a higher standard or a different standard. Hindus have been asked to move on from the loss of 40,000 temples. Hindus are being asked to move on from their sacred places named after religious bigots. They have been asked to move on from their country being torn into 3 different pieces based on the spurious idea that Hindus and Muslims are apparently 2 different nations and they cannot coexist together. They've been asked to move on from the Mopla massacre. They've been asked to move on from the death of the Kashmiri Hindus. How is he the only one that is being asked to move on? I don't understand. It's kind of like when a guy goes to Rana Sanga and complains to him that he's got a cut on his thumb, and Rana Sangram is like, bro, look at me.
Hindu, Muslim or communal amity can only happen if the constitution is followed in principle and implemented in toto. Simple. Forget about all these flowery statements by Rajdeep Sardesai. What happens on the ground is important. Where are these secular parties now? Why are they quiet now?
This is wonderful because there's a huge distinction between the words of AIMIM and Asaduddin Owaisi and between the actions of AIMIM and Owaisi. He talks about secularism, but does he really believe in secularism? Because secularism means no separate Muslim personal law board. Secularism means everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. Secularism means no triple talaq. Secularism means that women have equal rights to inheritance under Muslim law as men. Because right now, women only have half the rights to inheritance that a Muslim man has. Secularism means that Muslim educational institutions will also be subject to the Right to Education Act, not just the Hindu educational institutions. Secularism means that mosques will also become subject to government control, just like many temples are subject to government control. Secularism also means no Article 370. So if he really cares about secularism so much, then why was he against triple talaq? Why was he against the abrogation of Article 370? And is he, in the future, going to be in favor of getting rid of the Muslim Personal Law Board?
Who's raising a voice? Lawyers, journalists, everyone has been put in prison. All the voices have been scuttled. People have been put in prison for only dissenting. And you tell me, move on. Where do I move on? Is there a space to move on? Rajdeep, please tell me. There is no space to move on.
And he said everybody that disagrees with the BJP government is being thrown in jail. That's obviously incorrect because Asaduddin Owaisi is free. In fact, not just him, but many political commentators, many politicians, and many journalists who spend their entire careers abusing the BJP and calling Modi a fascist. They're all living outside freely, and they're all making a very lucrative career out of abusing BJP and Modi. However, having said that, I am going to add a caveat that he is absolutely right, that no political party in India really upholds freedom of speech, including the BJP. The BJP does not fully respect freedom of speech, and that is just the honest truth. The only problem is that even Asaduddin Owaisi and his party do not believe in freedom of speech. It's kind of like a crocodile promoting vegetarianism. There is zero proof that AIMIM believes in freedom of speech. There is zero proof that things will be any different if the AIMIM comes into power nationally. Why? Because of their track record. Their party member threatened to behead Taslima Nasreen, who is an atheist novelist, just because she criticized Islam. In fact, one of their major leaders made a very infamous speech a few years back where he said, just remove the police for 15 minutes and see what Muslims can do to the Hindus. Their party have posted outrageous posters in Andhra Pradesh where they have encouraged Muslims not to have faith in the Indian judicial system, where they have encouraged Muslims not to go to the Indian judicial system to solve their problems, because what AIMIM wants to do is create a parallel judicial system which is going to be based on Islamic Sharia law, and that's where they want Muslims to go and get their problems sorted out. So look at your track record: death threats, claims of making a parallel judiciary based on Islamic Sharia law. Arguably, if you do come to power, your rule will be much, much worse than today, especially for people that are non-Muslims, especially for atheists, especially for the LGBTQ people and women who will have to live in constant fear of this Sharia law, which prescribes extremely heinous punishments for many of these people. And see, this is my problem with media as well. What did Rajdeep do when Owaisi was saying all of these things? Did he ask any questions? Did he push back? Not at all. All he did was just stand there with his hands folded. See, the problem with Owaisi and the problem with AIMIM is that him and his party act like the bully and act like the victim at the same time. They want secularism and they want Sharia law at the same time. It's like wanting chocolate syrup on pizza. It doesn't work, they don't go together. So before Owaisi or AIMIM lecture other people about how Indian secularism should be and how the Indian state should behave, show us, don't tell us, show us that you believe in secularism, you believe in secular values, because your and your party's track record certainly does not suggest it. And I want to ask you guys, have you guys seen that video? It's been pretty viral on social media for the last couple of days. What did you think of it? What do you think of the points that I have made? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. Once again, guys, if you liked today's episode, make sure to leave a like, leave a thumbs up. It helps me out, it helps the channel out. Let me know what you think of the new branding of the English channel as well. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Let me know again in the comment section as well. If you liked today's episode and if you'd like to support the Sham Sharma show, make sure to click on the Patreon link in the description down below and become a patron of the show as well. Also, if you like the Sham Sharma show, if you like today's video, if you like the kind of content that we make and you still haven't for some reason subscribed, well, it's rebranded now too, man. Just go ahead and subscribe. Make sure to press the bell icon as well. check out our other episodes over here and over here as well. I am sure you would like them. And I will see you for the next episode. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon.